Hello everybody, my name is Benjamin Sander. Today I'll be talking about unions. Of course we all know what a union is, but let's go ahead and get started. A union is a group of people that represent employees for better benefits. You see these problems that arise pre-industrialization period um, where workers would be worked unfair wage amounts, as well as unsafe conditions that they would work in. You'd see these basically in sweatshops and other very laboring jobs. So the first labor unions were not very organized. Pre-industrialization, there was not a lot of collaboration between employees, and there was not a lot of employees working well together to form a successful strike. Of course, there were still organized in a sense, but there was never a strike that really was successful and produced a lot of benefits for these employees. We'd say the first one was in 1791 with the Philadelphia Carpenters, who wanted a 10-hour work week versus the normal sun up to sundown work day. You would see 75 hours or more worked for other workers, and these carpenters realized, hey, that's not very safe for us. Also, it's not very fair for us to have to work so many hours a week. Going on, of course, every union has its pros. The largest pro is obviously higher wages. You get paid more. You see these pay raises. They can be significant at times, but you would see the median weekly income for a full-time wage and salary worker who are unionized is 917 in 2010. And the difference between that would be $200, which for non-unionized workers is $717 a week. You see better benefits for the unionized workers. You see 93% of unionized workers are entitled to benefits compared to the 69% of their non-union peers. Job security, you do see a lot of job security with unionized workers. They cannot be fired for just any reason, really. If the unionized worker was to whistleblow, which is basically just tell on them for the unsafe working conditions or the working conditions to the officials of the union could take action and ask for either better working conditions or better pay. Of course, better working conditions. Pre-industrialization, you would see a lot of people getting injured on the job, and there would be no compensation. Of course, if you're an employer and you want to you want to keep your employees and not get in trouble or have to pay out a lot of compensation, you would work to have better working conditions. You don't want to have these unsafe conditions where you'd be at risk of having to pay settlements. So cons, you do see a lot of cons. Well, you don't see as much cons as pros, but there are still cons in being in part of a union. Being in a union, you do have to pay fees or dues. Sorry. Most of them can be yearly. They generally are about 2.5%, but they can be seen as low as 1.5%, but they could also be as high as 3.5%. Sometimes they are a one-time fee, but generally it's a $200 or more a year for being part of a union. They also drive up costs of products. You see, of course, if you see higher wages, you also see the employer wanting to make more money, and by doing so, or making a profit. By doing so, they would have to increase the costs of their products that they produce. You do not always see the best workers within unionized in the union, part of a union. That's because seniority is emphasized often within the structured union, which is no guarantee that a worker who receives a promotion will have the skills necessary to get the job done. Being there for a longer time, of course, you won't be able to get fired, which is a good thing. If you go back to this slide, you'll have job security. That being said, if you are not qualified for the job, but you can't get fired because of it, seniority will come into play. You'll rise up the ranks, and you won't be as qualified as someone who's been at a different job in that position, who is also educated. You do see that problem arise. Some of the largest labor unions is probably the largest one that we know about is the NEA, the National Education Association of the United States. They're a professional interest group. They represent school teachers and other support personnel. They are about 3 million, and they are headquartered in Washington, D.C. They actually have a budget of $341 million for last seen in 2012 to 2013, the fiscal years, $341 million. They campaign for better wages, better benefits, and all the pros that we've seen for them. You see the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. They are representing healthcare. They are the healthcare. They are the union for healthcare. They include nursing home workers. They also seen janitors and security officers and food service workers. They have 150 local branches. Let's see. They are also headquartered in Washington, D.C. You see the AFSCME, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. They, of course, they represent the public employees in the United States. They have over 1 million members. You see Teamsters, which is they are a union for the local, they are the union for drivers, and they have over 1 million members. You see the United Food and Commercial Workers. They're a union for retail and food service workers. You see the AFT, which is also another union that supports teachers and the like here. These are the biggest strikes. You see the biggest strikes as the Southwest Railroad strike. This is basically where 200,000 railroad workers just basically put down their tools and walked out. They didn't have they just did not like their working conditions, and they wanted better wages. It was a failed strike because it started becoming violent. You see the Great New York City Garbage Strike. This was actually one of the more successful strikes. Basically, this sanitation workers wanted a bigger wage. They wanted a larger wage hike. There was actually a deal that went down between the leader of the union, where there was a $400 wage hike and overtime for Sundays and a better package. and it failed. The city saw it as illegal because the strike went on. The union workers went on strike anyways. And later on, of course, the union workers still got paid, but they actually got paid a little bit higher. You see the Great Anthracite Strike, the coal strike. Let's see. It was basically a strike for a larger wage hike. You see the U.S. Postal Workers strike. They wanted a higher wage hike as well. The most recent strike, you see the 36,500 Verizon workers in 2016, the 27,000 Chicago teachers who went on strike in 2016. The most recent one was 81,000 teachers and school staff in Arizona, and as well as the 34,000 school staff in LA. This is my references here, where I've gotten this information from. And I would like to end this presentation on unions right here. Thank you.